Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's board meeting. It's 7:03. I'm going to move us back from closed session to open session. It is 7:03 on 2/18. And the first thing that we're going to go to is the Pledge of Allegiance. And Gethsemane, would you mind leading us today?
Okay, can everyone please stand? I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag
of the
United States
of
America, and
Republic
to
for
the
the
republic
for which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty, justice
and
for all.
Thank you so much. Be seated. Okay, approval of the agenda, item number 7. Let me open this up further. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Thank you,
I'll second
Mark.
it.
Thanks, Diane. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we do a roll call vote on this one? That, because we kind of said we were going to be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so roll call vote then.
Betty.
I don't know if who's going to do it. Is it Betty going to do it or?
Betty, are
There's
you
no
there?
roll call vote on the approval of agenda.
We changed everything due to COVID stuff that we're going to do a roll call.
Okay, that would be
On-
Georgina. She's still in charge of this meeting. I'm just watching.
Okay, thank you. Georgina, are you there?
I don't see her screen yet.
I don't see it either.
I think for
Okay.
this item for procedure, we're doing the roll call because we're in virtual. We just want to make sure everybody is accounted for. So I think it's okay for you guys to do a global one, and then we'll see if we get
Okay.
you back on.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, the motion carried. We're on to number 8, the highlight of this evening, Black History Month BHS Book Club. And I have, you know what, even before we get to that, I wanted to make a comment and let all of those that have tuned in that we, due to some Solano County Office of Education is experiencing some network problems, connectivity issues, as they issues. This live stream is being conducted remotely. We want to let you know this information in case the live stream gets disconnected. We are currently receiving all public comments. If we receive any that are delayed, we will play them at the end of the meeting. So I want to let everybody know that is a potential. We apologize in advance. We have no control over it. So going back to item number 8. Yes, number 8. I'm going to ask that, hold on, my screen is not behaving. Brianna Kleinschmidt is going to be talking about this with us. So Brianna, Mrs. Kleinschmidt, if you would like to share your lovely information about this book club.
Sure. Thank you very much, President and trustees and everyone who's watching. I'm Brianna Kleinschmidt, the principal at Benicia High School, and am very honored to share a board highlight with you tonight and with our community about our first ever BHS Reads event. I also have 3 students here with me that we'll get to share with all of you a little bit about their experience so far. And I also want to extend a huge thank you to Dr. Beatson, to Dr. Moss, who's participated, to Stephanie Rice has also participated, and lots of other staff members who've taken time to be a part of this first ever event and show a lot of support. Very much appreciated. We are reading Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And this is a work of nonfiction that was published in 2015. A letter to his son. And so it's a very personal book, one that's based on experience. And so through that, We've also had 2 book discussions so far. We're holding them on Fridays at noon via Zoom, of course. And we put together some reading questions and a reading guide. We've been very fortunate to have our librarian, Megan Siegel, and our vice principal, Dwight Rogers, who also is advisor of our Black Student Union, to help to facilitate our book talks and just guide us through the reading and through discussion of student experiences, our experiences, listening, learning from each other, and just broadening our perspectives. And so we've just really enjoyed this first half of the month and our reading so far. We have our 3rd meeting tomorrow and our final meeting the last Friday of the month. And with that, I'd like to give the 3 students that are here some opportunity to talk. And Kalia, if you don't mind that I introduce you first. Kalia is one of the officers of our Black Student Union. I'll ask Madison to speak after her. Madison is a student rep, so you see her on these board meetings, but she's also an officer of our BSU. And then Emma Chastain is here as well, and she's part of our book club. And our BSU and our book club, those 2 groups of students have also joined together with this first ever Reads event. So Kalia, with that, I'll give you the floor.
Hello, my name is Kalia Conan, and I am one of the BSU ambassadors. And I will be discussing some of the highlights in our previous meetings for the book by Mr. Coates, author Coates. Many things are worth highlighting about the BHS book read. From a culturally diverse student's perspective, allowing both students and staff to obtain a collaborative understanding about the world around them is essential. It is important for teachers to learn and understand the students they teach. Reviewing such a powerful book about the social disparities of race makes me feel hopeful about BHS's steps to make the Benicia community more culturally aware. In our previous meeting, we discussed how race affects the education system, how apparent the disconnect between teachers and students is when it comes to this social conflict. We answered a question derived from the UCLA Facilitation Guide on how the U.S. education breeds complicity and division rather than unity and progression, and came to the conclusion that schools must provide safe and cooperative provide safe and cooperative environments for children of culturally diverse backgrounds so we can teach them more about their histories and stuff like that. So thank you.
Excellent. Kalia, thank you so much. And thank you for pointing out, yes, some of our reading guide, our questions have come from UCLA, who had a common read with all of their students on this book as well. So that's been great. Madison.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madison again. You guys have seen me many in the past weeks. So, yes, Kalia highlighted most of the things I was going to say. The book discussion has been really good. It's really fascinating to see some of the student body come together and talk about the racial issues and have an open conversation. I know as students, sometimes it can be scary to have those conversations, and even teachers, it can be scary to talk about that. But during these book discussions, it's really powerful and fascinating to me because as a young Black woman, I'm like, wow, like other people are seeing what I see. So I'm really enjoying these book discussions. They're going very, very good, and I look forward to joining the book discussion every week. And that's what I hoped would happen when Miss K brought up this idea. And they're going great. I love them.
Thank you, Madison. Emma, if you can share with us as well.
My turn. Sorry, I had to ask my house to be a little bit quieter. So yeah, I have never really read anything like Between the World and Me, and especially not in a school environment. And so other than the history books and in history classes, we don't cover these issues in such depth. I mean, we do in English classes, but it's usually, just a unit. And so I feel like now is the perfect time for young people to I don't know, listen to each other and have comfortable conversations, because it's in such a safe environment and we get to hear from people who we might not normally hear from because we either don't know them or we don't really care to listen. And so I would say that the book club has been extremely eye-opening for me, and I'm sure it has been for teachers and students who have joined in the discussion. And I know that listening as well as joining in the conversation is really important. And we have done a good job of participating, everyone as a group so far. And yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. You were all very well spoken, and I think did a great job of helping others understand how our discussions have gone so far, and why this has been such a special opportunity. We've had about 50 students choose to participate in our first ever BHS Reads event. It's open to any student, and it's been great to see the response for this initial event. We really hope to be able to do this each year, grow this program, include even more student voice in nominating books, selecting books so that they represent our students and we can further these types of discussions. And it's just spawned such great ideas and excitement around literacy and student voice. And so again, I want to thank you for the support and the opportunity to do this and to work with all of our staff and our students in this new way. Thank you.
Fabulous.
Thank you very much for sharing all this wonderful information, Mrs. Kleinschmidt. And thank you, ladies, for presenting the information in such a wonderful way so that we can understand how you are benefiting from this kind of program. And I think it's great. I think I need to come get a book so I can read it as well, because I'm not familiar with it. So, but I thank you for doing that. And
Ms. Ada, can I ask a quick question when you're done?
Yep.
You're finished? Go
Yes.
ahead. Any one of the students, I was just curious because I had the experience that we have so much social media stuff that's immediate that we can read, and then the experience to sit with a book is completely different. And being that you're much younger than I am, and you're in high school, do you cross back and forth between those mediums pretty well, or is sitting for you in this stage, sitting down to a book like a whole sort of a shift in the mindset?
I'm not sure that they are here, Charles. Emma, Madison, or Kalia, are any of you
Oh,
here?
rats, they left. Okay, well.
Oh, there. No, here's one.
Still, oh, good.
Oh, here's two. There you go.
It's kind of a complex question. Do you know what I mean? Do you have to make that mental shift, or you read so much that it's like, because I have to make that shift. When I read a book, it's harder.
Yeah. Sorry if you don't mind me going first.
No.
I think it is a lot different, especially because we are getting one perspective at all times from the author. And I mean, on social media and everything, you get all sorts of stories, and you get a lot of, comments mixed in there, but then kind of the only comments or thoughts that we're having are our own and in the book club. And so it is different, and it's more concentrated in the discussions that we have rather than comments on social media and everything.
Fascinating. Thank you, Emma.
Yeah, I agree. And also the time that it takes to create this book. This book is a collective of thought out, processed thoughts by this amazing author, whereas social media, it's more of compulsive thoughts, like last minute, thinking. So it's definitely refreshing to read a book that really gets down and really, it's like tunnel vision on, race. Whereas, with on social media, race can be like, oh, well, it's this, oh, well, it's that. So it's really good. Like, it's very refreshing, very informative.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Great feedback. Great question.
There's
some. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Ms. Kleinschmidt for providing this space for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been blown away by just from listening to the students' perspective and It's been amazing. I'm looking forward to it, and I don't even want it to end after.
Oh,
There's only 2 more for this one, but I've absolutely appreciated it, and you have provided a safe space, and I'm so glad that students are sharing what is absolutely on their hearts and what their experiences have been. So I just want to say thank you, and the staff as well. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Nice.
thank you, Dr. Moss.
Yes.
All right. So brings us to item number 9, which are our reports. First up is our student reports.
Miss Ada, unless I missed it, did you guys vote on the closed session item?
That's a good question.
No, they did not.
Okay.
You know what? I think it all
Nope.
happened. It all happened when we weren't sure where Georgina was at that
Okay,
time.
you're right. It did. So
Yes,
yeah,
so-
I was just, did we do that? So we better do that. So, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So
there should have been a report out from closed session. I asked if we were back, you were open from closed session, and nobody responded to me. I had no idea the meeting had started. So I have
Oh,
where
no, no
I'm at
worries.
home.
No,
you're in
no
Hawaii.
worries. No worries. Why don't we go back to item number 4, or excuse me, number 5, and we want to report back on closed session. There were no items, but there was a student matter, and there was a couple of things. And where is my? Bear with me, you guys. I'm sorry. So we want to. Is there a motion that somebody could make regarding our closed session items? Is that yes?
I move that we support the recommendation for OAH case number 20200900689.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thanks.
Great.
All
So
in
the roll call
favor?
is-
Roll call vote?
Roll call vote, yes. So President Seda,
Yes.
Trustee Ferrucci,
Yes.
Trustee Maselli,
Yes.
Trustee Grubbs,
Yes.
and Trustee Moss.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Georgina. Okay, now we're moving ahead to 9.1 student reports. And I know I see some of our students here. Is Michaela Moldero? I think I saw her. Would you
Yes.
like to share some information today about Benicia High School?
Yeah, I'd love to. So my Wi-Fi's been a little iffy. I'm sorry if I cut out.
No worries.
So I'll be talking about the things that are upcoming. We do have, concerning leadership, we have elections, or we have an election meeting tomorrow, actually. So we're pretty excited about that to see who our upcoming officers are going to be. And then last time we had a meeting, it was actually Miss Kay had her athletics info night. So that's super exciting. I know a lot of students that are going out for those sports. And so we collaborated with her, and we're planning a senior night, which we think we're going to start in mid-March. And we're trying to figure out all the, the regulations we have to go around. So we're meeting with her, working on that. And then we have a multicultural week in April that we're planning as of right now. We're trying to figure out the gist of it. We're thinking of doing like virtual tours that we can link the students to, and then getting students like from different cultural backgrounds. Like we have a student in our leadership class. His name is Jinjin. He's from China. So his mom is going to cook I think it's dumplings or something like that. But she's going to make a video for us. And then we're going to see if we can get other students, like maybe dancers for like a student spotlight, but like not student spotlight, because that's like Panther TV's thing. So we're still trying to figure that out. And then we have March Madness also coming up. One of our students, his name is Riley. He's going to take a poll and basically see like who can predict the scores for the games like that, the closest, I guess. And then whoever wins will get like a prize. We're still trying to figure out like exactly how he's going to do that, just because that's a lot of people and a lot of teams. So and then we have a rally also coming up. It's the Friday before we go on spring break. We're trying to figure out if we can incorporate the sports in it, just because we know that it's going to be hard since that's just when they're starting out, and we don't know if they'll have captains yet, but we're pretty sure we're going to like incorporate sports in that. And yeah, Maddie's going to go on to what we have Still planning. Oh, I also forgot to say, American Poverty Aid Club is also collecting letters for our frontline, like nurses and people like that. So they're collecting those for. They did that today, and they're doing it tomorrow. And I believe they're gonna send them out this weekend or drop them off to like the hospitals and things like that. So they were collecting those, and then Key Club has been doing, just their usual tree planning and things like that. So yeah.
Thank you, Michaela. It's a lot going on, a lot of things to look forward to. So thank you for that. We also have ASB VP, Madison Furl. If you'd like to join us and share any information that you have regarding
Of
Benicia High
course.
School.
Hi again.
Hi.
We have done the Panther podcast that is still on and going. Actually, Miss Kay was featured on our episode this week. So go on Spotify and you can listen to that. It's called Panther Podcast. And then we also had our elective fair. We made leadership, a couple students in leadership made a video, including myself, to put out there just to encourage people to go out for leadership. And we also this week had senior sweatshirts going out to all the seniors. So that was exciting to finally get our senior sweatshirts. Our design looks amazing. That was actually made by a student. And then not regarding leadership, we actually, for Black Student Union, we have been doing different weeks each week in this month for Black History Month. And an upcoming week is HBCU Week, Historically Black Colleges and Universities. So we will be having different graduated students from HBCUs coming to talk to the students about HBCUs and what all you can learn, and just like the information on them and the history behind them. So that's the things that we have done.
You've been busy too. That's great. Those are great programs and things that you've shared. I appreciate you being here tonight for that. And is Alicia Wells here for Liberty High School? I do not think I see her. So apparently we don't have a report this evening from Liberty High School. So we're again, thank you, ladies. And if you would like to go and do your homework or watch television or whatever it is, enjoy your evening. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. All right. Then moving on to 9.2 is our superintendent report. Dr. Young, you're up.
Thank you very much. Good evening, trustees, everybody joining us, and folks that are watching at home. Just, I'll be brief. We have a number of public comments tonight, a pretty full agenda. But I just want to start off again by thanking everybody in the system who is tending to our students. Thank you. And that we continue to tend to one another. So thank you very much for that. And I would like to keep messaging and broadcasting the importance of as a community, as a learning community in a town, and that we continue to work together in ways that build community in ways that are inclusive and respectful and hopeful. So I like that. I keep thinking about that. And it's such a great town and such a great school district. And I want us to keep thinking about how we build community together, because the virus will eventually go away and we will all be here together. So we want to make sure we continue to build this positive place, certainly for ourselves and for our kids. I mentioned at some point about the governor's Safe Schools for All plan that was out there. There was some interesting pieces in it. I made a report on it. There was timelines and dates and money involved, et cetera. And then it was in the legislature for some time, and I got a report today that the legislature and the governor settled, and they reached a deal. There's a number of pieces to it. I don't have all the details, but when we process it, I'll make sure that I'll communicate that certainly with the board and the team and the community to see in what way that may or may not affect our school district. And the last thing, I'll try to have more information in my update to the community tomorrow about the vaccine. I know all school districts and all communities are wondering about the vaccine and supply and distribution dates, et cetera. So I have a little more information on that, but I want to make sure I'm very clear before I put that out. I'll try to get that succinct and put that out in my communication tomorrow to give a sense of how schools are being prioritized and some sense of a timeline. So I'll have that for you. I should have that for everybody tomorrow, as such as it is where it is. It's been complicated. So that's it from you, Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Young.
Welcome.
Good report. Okay, then we're moving on to board reports from the members of the board. Who would like to? CC Grubbs, you're up.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I have a couple. I got to participate in a couple of things last week. I was along with Mr. Slater. I was asked to be a judge in two fifth grade classes to determine for a debate, and we were invited to determine which group supported their topic of either for or against plastic straws or for or against self-driving vehicles. So I have to say the level of research, articulation, statement of evidence with explanations on all sides was really impressive. It was clear that the students not only enjoyed their topics, but were very invested in doing a sophisticated and thorough job in researching and supporting their positions. It was great. It was really impressive and well done. And then I also, the same evening, I had the honor of being invited by Andrew Barrett, along with Dr. Moss, to sit in on the Culturally Responsive Teaching PLC led by Lindsay Fuller. And this is a dedicated group of teachers that are exploring their own biases, their own cultures, and they're reading a book called Culturally Responsive Teaching by Zaretta Hammond. And this work takes courage and self-reflection as well as a desire to grow and make change. So I'd like to stress that Ms. Fuller is an amazing facilitator that asks some very tough questions, but she asks them with grace and understanding. And I understand, Dr. Beatson, that you've contracted with Ms. Fuller to engage in a 5-session workshop. And I want to just strongly recommend that to staff and principals and district office personnel to avail themselves of these sessions. It's very powerful work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Scrubs. Anybody else have any report? Okay, Ms. Ferrucci.
I'm just going to go real quick. I sat on Lcap this week with Dr. Beatson and Mrs. Rice, and she's going to be sharing that tonight. So I'm not going to say too much more, but what I will tell you is this team has been working really, really hard, and it's exciting to hear the dedication and the excitement about the work that they're doing. So I just like to say thank you to the team. The other thing I did is I sat in on that county call today, and what I will just say is one little quote that I thought was really exciting, and it was that the COVID disease is improving significantly in our county, and everybody was very excited to hear that today. So that's good news. I agree. Thank you.
Ms. Sada, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Mr. Maselli, did you have anything to share out on reports? Dr. Moss? Nothing? I just want to make one comment, and I want our teachers and staff to know how much we appreciate them. Things have been difficult, and there have been things said, and people's feelings have gotten hurt. And I just want to say from myself and the board how much we appreciate their efforts and everything that they're doing to educate our children in the best way possible. So I just want them to know we care. So that being said, we're going to move on to comments from members of the public. And at this time, Michael Sharif is going to be playing information that has been recorded on our call-in line. I'll go ahead and read this. In an effort for our community's voice to be heard, BUSD has transitioned into accepting public comments via the public comment voicemail that will now be available. Members of the public wishing to address specific items on the board meeting agenda are requested to call 707-748-2787. One comment per person per item, limited to 3 minutes on the day of the meeting between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Please note that no anonymous messages will be played. If your comment is for closed session, please be sure to state that so that it can be addressed prior to closed session. The board clerk will play the recording of all open session public comments to the specific items then being discussed by the board bylaw 9323 during the public comment item. The governing board allows speakers to speak at meetings on agendized and non-agendized matters under public comment. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker, at which time the voicemail will be cut off. By law, no action may be taken on any item raised during public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. We would like to please remind you to keep your comments respectful and that the students may be watching the board meeting. I want to say right before Michael starts to play these that we did have some calls that I was able to hear prior to this moment tonight, and they were from some children. And we're going to allow them to be played because they're actually really cute. But I want to remind everybody that from now on in the future that you need to leave a name as you're leaving your comment, because a few of the younger ones didn't leave their name, but I do want them to be heard. So without further ado, Michael, if you could start playing, I would appreciate that.
Brittany Sapien speaking to item 13.2. At the February 14th meeting, Dr. Matthias commented that it was highly unusual for a district to have approved sports but not in-person learning. I wonder what it says about our district from an outsider's perspective as to why we are one of the only districts in the area to not have special education offered for in-person learning. I can tell you from an insider's perspective, as a parent of 2 children with IEPs, it's incredibly frustrating. I ask that the board stay on task tonight, do not deviate from the agenda, and vote to approve the start of small groups and one-to-one services immediately. They are allowed under the purple tier without a waiver. Then begin to prepare and educate our staff and families on the safety protocols so that we can begin hybrid in the red tier on March 22nd. Thank you. Hello, my name is Jennifer Burns, and I'm a Benicia resident. In regards to discussion items 12.3 and 13.2, I support having the 1619 project being a part of the school's mandatory curriculum. As an adult, I'm having to come to terms with the fact that my schooling was based on lies and cover-ups. I also do not support the reopening of schools before all the vaccinations have been out. This, to me, is extremely irresponsible. Thank you. Hello, my name is Kashana Lee, and I have been a resident of Benicia for over 10 plus years. I'm also a parent of children who attend Robert Simple Elementary and Benicia High School. I want to bring to your attention concerns that I have with the school district not doing enough to address racial inequity in our schools. I'm a parent that has had 3 older children go through the Benicia Unified School District as well, and each one of them has experienced some sort of racially traumatic and scarring incident that has occurred on school grounds. These incidents were either not addressed or quickly dismissed with no further action. Regarding item 12.3 for the plan and Lcap process, when finalizing Lcap goals, I ask that all programs and resources be developed and administered with equity in mind. Those who are disproportionately impacted should disproportionately benefit from it. I ask that our children be provided with access to safe and equitable learning environment when they return to school, in which teachers are provided with robust anti-racist trainings, which include restorative justice practices, racial equity trainings, and trauma-based interventions and practices. I strongly advocate for our children to have access to a curriculum that is historically accurate, reflective, and representative to the contributions of all ethnic groups to the culture of the United States. I ask that the district adapt the 1619 project curriculum as well as other culturally responsive curriculum into all our classrooms, further requiring every BUSD teacher to utilize these curricula to successfully integrate them into their daily teachings. I advocate for all students to have equitable access to mental health services. This goal can be achieved by staffing each school site with full-time mental health support services composed of school counselors, school psychologists, and teachers who have participated in the robust anti-racist training previously mentioned. This is to help potential long-term effects of those that have or will experience racially traumatic stress within the schools. Regarding item 13.1, safety plan, I'm eager to hear how the site and district safety plans presented this evening specifically address the challenges of COVID safety. To those community members demanding that our schools reopen immediately for in-person instruction, I ask that we first hear our district support on the COVID safety upgrades that have been implemented at each school site, along with how they plan to supply all staff members with adequate PPE. Thank you.
I'm Colleen for 13.2. Hi, I'm in kindergarten, and I would like for the board members to come to our rally on February 26th.
My name is Brandon Finch. I live on Oxford Way near Rose Drive. I am the parent of a child who attends Benicia High School. With respect to item 12.3, strategic plan, LCAP process, when finalizing the LCAP goals, I ask that all programs and resources be developed and administered with equity in mind. Those who have been disproportionately impacted should disproportionately benefit. We're not currently doing enough to address racial inequality, performance gaps, and racial trauma experienced by our kids at school, a place where they should be safe. I ask that our children be provided with access to a safe and equitable learning environment when they return to school, in which teachers are provided with robust anti-racist trainings, which include restorative justice practices, racial equity trainings, and trauma-based interventions and practices. I strongly advocate for our children to have access to a curriculum that is historically accurate. Please just tell the truth about what our history is. I want that history to be reflective and representative of the contributions of all ethnic groups to the culture of the United States, including the trauma inflicted upon those groups. I ask that the district adopt the 1619 project curriculum in all of our classrooms and that teachers integrate this into their daily teachings. I also want to advocate for all students to have equitable access to mental health services. This goal can be achieved by staffing each school site with full-time mental health support services composed of school counselors, a school psychologist, and teachers who have participated in robust anti-racist trainings previously mentioned. Our children need mental health services. Kids who are branded as bad children are not necessarily bad children, but if nobody takes the time to understand them, they'll simply get in trouble, and then the school can't do its job to educate them. With respect to item 13.1, the safety plan, I'm eager to hear how the site and district safety plans presented this evening will specifically address the challenges of COVID safety in school. To those community members demanding that our schools reopen immediately for in-person instruction, I ask that they wait so that we can first hear from our district regarding the COVID-safe upgrades that are implemented at each school site, along with how the school district plans to supply all staff with adequate PPE. Our students and our teachers should be safe. Lastly, though it's not an item on the agenda, I do want to state for the record that I oppose the current campaign to single out trustees Sherry Zada and Mark Maselli for recall. It's simply not right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Hi, my name is Nancy Rothstein. I live in Benicia on Oxford Way, and I'm a parent of a child who attends Benicia High School. With regard to discussion item 12.3, strategic plan and LCAP process, this is my comment. When finalizing these LCAP goals, I ask that all programs and resources be developed and administered with equity in mind. Those who are disproportionately impacted should disproportionately benefit. I don't think that we're currently doing enough to address racial inequity, performance gaps, and the racial trauma being experienced by kids at school, where they should be safe. I ask that children be provided with access to a safe and equitable learning environment when they return to school, in which teachers are provided with robust anti-racist trainings, which include restorative justice practices, racial equity trainings, and trauma-based interventions and practices. I strongly advocate for our children to have access to a curriculum that is historically accurate, reflective, and representative of the contributions of all ethnic groups to the culture of the United States. I ask that the district adopts the 1619 project curriculum into all of our classrooms and that teachers integrate this into their daily teaching. I also advocate for all students to have equitable access to mental health services. This goal can be achieved by staffing each school site with full-time mental health support services composed of school counselors, school psychologists, and teachers who have participated in the robust anti-racist trainings previously mentioned. In regard to discussion item 13.1, the safety plan, I would like to ask that we hear our district report the COVID safe upgrades implemented at each school site before making decisions about going back. And I do not, although this is not an agendized item, I wish to state that I do not support the recall campaign for recalling Sherry Zada and Mark Maselli. Thank you.
Rosalind Johnson, 433 Solano Drive. The item I'd like to address is 12.3. Please incorporate the 1619 project into the entire Benicia Unified School District curriculum. If applied properly, it not only covers American history, but science, the environment, space, mathematics, language, and the arts. Remember and underscore the importance of the 1619 project as American history, not Black history. The removal of the contributions of African descendants of enslaved people has had a catastrophic impact on everyone in America today. White students and staff need to know and understand the efforts of those people and how these efforts have enhanced life for all of us. Additionally, the curriculum must be supplemented by creating partnerships with local and Bay Area museums, libraries, businesses, and consulting with African American professionals in the education and training for social justice, equity, and the eradication of white supremacist practices and judgments.
Hi, my name is Elaine Kachowick. I live at 500 Beaumont Street in Benicia, and I'm the mom of a Robert Semple Elementary first grader. I wish to speak to item number 4.4 in the closed session regarding individual student need. So along with other parents of children in our class who have opted to transition back to hybrid learning, we received an email from the school informing us that in-person learning is not available at Robert Semple for kids in her class due to our daughter's teacher continuing to exclusively teach virtually. So we've been given the option of having our first graders go to another school for the last quarter of the year or continue with virtual learning only. For first graders, there is a very clear benefit to having in-person instruction. My daughter's teacher is skilled and wonderful, but my child is engaged for a very low percentage of the time in virtual classes and is missing social skill development almost entirely. There's also a clear benefit to not putting 6-year-olds in the position of acclimating to a brand new school where parents aren't going to be allowed on campus, and there won't be much of a transition period for the last 2 months of the school year. I know that the district needs to set up schools safely, but to put much of a class of first graders in the position of not being able to attend their neighborhood school shows disregard for the extremely problematic position that this puts these kids in. Whatever option we choose, my kids' educational experience will have been negatively impacted, whereas other kids will have the opportunity to learn more simply on the basis of their assigned teacher. This is not equitable. I thank the board for their time in listening to this need in regards to first grade students at Robert Semple Elementary School. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gia Quinn, and I would like to speak to item 13.2 regarding in-person small group instruction. I ask the board to please vote to approve small groups and one-to-one special ed services immediately. It's difficult to understand why this hasn't been started yet, even though there are multiple public schools doing this. And the Catholic school here in town is back in person, and they're doing very well. I would like to thank Dr. Beatson for meeting with the parents a few months ago regarding small group instruction. She had a lot of really good information,
and she seemed to understand the need. And I'd like to thank her for being willing to represent tonight for further clarification so that there will be no confusion as to what is being voted on. As I stated in my comments to the board a couple of weeks ago, the board has yet to actively address the issue of starting small groups and special ed services moving to in-person learning. Please be transparent in your decision, as well as the science, discussion, and thought that leads to any lack of approval. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Burns. I'm a Benicia resident. In regard to discussion item 12.3, as a person who plans to have children one day who will attend Benicia Unified School District schools, I want to advocate for our students to have access to curriculum that is historically accurate and honest. I want to make sure that my kids will be in the hands of a school system that makes equity a priority for all students, that those in our community who are disproportionately impacted are disproportionately benefited when considering Lcap goals. I also ask that the school district adopt a 1619 project curriculum for all its schools and provide teachers with anti-racist training, that all students have equitable access to mental health services. In regard to item 13.1, I'm eager to hear how the site and district safety plans presented this evening plan to address COVID safety. I would also like to publicly oppose the current campaign to single out trustees Sherry Zeta and Mark Maselli for recall. This feels like a waste of time and money. I also find it interesting that these two are being singled out. I would like to ask the community members organizing this effort, where were their voices of outrage and urgency when our own school district numbers report back that African American students are failing at disproportionate rates? I understand they want what's best for their children. I hope the school district will focus on what's best for all children. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Cohen, and I want to voice my public comment to discussion item 12.3, which is the strategic plan and Lcap process. I would like to respectfully ask that when finalizing Lcap goals, all programs and resources be developed and administered with equity in mind. Those students who are disproportionately impacted should disproportionately benefit. I want to strongly advocate for our district to adapt the 1619 project curriculum as well as other culturally responsive curriculum into all of our BUSD classrooms. It is imperative that our children have access to a curriculum that is historically accurate, reflective, and representative of the contributions of all ethnic groups to the culture of the United States. I want to also advocate for all students to have equitable access to mental health services, in which each of our school sites can be staffed with full-time mental health support services composed of school counselors, school psychologists, and teachers who have participated in the robust anti-racist trainings that have been provided by our professional learning community at this time. I would also like to express my deepest gratitude to Andrew Barrett and Allison Cornwall, whom are the founders of our anti-racist PLC. Their dedication, passion, and endless commitment to providing these imperative anti-racist training opportunities to all of our Benicia teachers and extended staff will no doubt have a direct impact on so many of our children's lives as they begin to transition back into their classrooms, especially our students of color and our students whom have been impacted the most during this pandemic. I hope to see many more anti-racist training opportunities for our BUSD staff to come. I would also like to acknowledge and thank our district for distributing information to all of our BUSD staff members regarding these imperative anti-racist training opportunities. Thank you for recognizing the need for anti-racist training in our district, and I hope you will all attend these imperative training sessions as well. And lastly, I would like to give a huge shout out to Jessica Garcia for her dedication and commitment to our children and their families. Thank you for all the time and energy you have put into creating and providing so many incredible mental health resources for our BUSD schools, community, and families. I'm really looking forward to attending your next social emotional learning parent workshop on February 24th from 5 to 5:30, titled Combating Isolation and Learning Strategies on How to Keep Our Kids Connected and Maintain Their Friendships During COVID. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to our voice.
Hi, I am an elementary school student here in Benicia. I want to ask if you will please come support us at the student rally next Friday, February 26th. Thank you.
My name is Amira Barger. My address is 2010 Clearview Circle, Benicia, California, 94510. And I'm calling regarding discussion item 12.3, the strategic plan and Lcap process. I'm a parent of a child who attends Mary Farmar Elementary School, and I wanted to leave comment and bring attention to some concerns that I have with the school district and what is being done to address racial equity in our schools, particularly for our Black children. I'm concerned about this as a mother of a second grader who is a Black child going to school in a majority white city, a majority white district with teachers and students who don't often look like her. When finalizing the LCAP goals, regarding item number 12.3, I wanted to state that I ask all programs and resources be developed and administered with equity in mind, ensuring that those who are disproportionately impacted should benefit disproportionately. And wanted to ask for 3 specific items in regards to our children returning to school safely, that our teachers are provided with the resources that they need in terms of PPE. And I'd like to hear about the COVID safety procedures that would be put in place. This is a part of and plays into the equity piece in item 12.3. I'd love to see anti-racist trainings that are not only robust, but consistent and ongoing, and that they include restorative justice practices, racial equity trainings, and trauma-based interventions and practices. I also strongly advocate for our children to have access to curriculum that's historically accurate, reflective, and representative of the contributions of all ethnic groups of the culture here in the U.S. And I ask that the district adopt the 1619 project curriculum, as well as other culturally responsive curriculum into all classrooms, and require that our BUSD teachers utilize that curricula to safely integrate or successfully integrate the equity piece into their daily teaching for all the children in charge to their care. I want to advocate for all students to have equitable access to mental health services. And that goal in particular can be achieved by staffing each school site with full-time mental health support services composed of school counselors, school psychologists, and teachers who've participated in the anti-racist trainings that I mentioned previously. So thank you very much. I want to express my support for all of our Board of Trustees and the work that you're doing to carry forward with your jobs and using your authority to make sure that equity is at the forefront of the school experience for all of our students and our teachers who, again, are entrusted with our children day in and day out. Thank you very much.
Good evening, James Ferrucci, item 13.2.
Hi, I'm a student, and I would like for the board members to come to the rally and help support us getting back in school. Hi, I'm also a student, and sometimes I feel like it's unfair to see the preschoolers that get to play on the playground, which we don't. So I ask you board members to come to the rally and support us children to get back into school.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Brandon Green, 227 Benicia, California, 227 Carlisle Way. I'm calling in support of an equity approach to the LCAP process, in particular, centering the experiences and the voices of Black students who are the most severely disproportionately impacted within the district, and urging the district to not only take a look at the way in which services are applied, the way in which resources are allotted, but also specifically the way curriculum is designed and school climate is implemented to make sure that all students feel comfortable and supported, again, with a particular focus on Black students as the most disproportionately impacted. As part of that culturally relevant curriculum, I'm urging that the district take a look at the 1619 project curriculum and other ethnic study curriculum that frame the experiences of Indigenous students and other ethnic groups within the district. I'm also calling in regard to item 13.1, the safety plan, recognizing that there are some parents who want their kids to come back. This, again, is a racial justice and equity issue. All the available data nationwide, and at least in California, shows that on the whole, Black parents are not represented within the data of parents who want their kids to come back. And that's because Black families are disproportionately impacted by the virus itself and the economic consequences that come from it. And Black children are also most severely impacted both by the fatalities and the illness itself. And so I would urge the district within their plan to make sure that there is an equity focus that specifically details what steps the districts are taking with regard to Black students, their safety, and the safety of their family and extended family. Thank you so much.
Aaron Sapien, item 13.2. Tonight, you're deciding on whether or not to provide services to children without disabilities and kids from low-income homes. Let that sink in. You all are actually sitting around deciding whether or not to help these kids and their parents out. How many studies and individual assessments have to be done to show that the lack of services during COVID will permanently affect kids with disabilities for you all to do the right thing? It's your responsibility to give the parents and the teachers the choice to return to the classroom. Some of you say you're teachers, married to teachers, retired teachers. Well, how many of you are special ed teachers? How many are parents of kids with disabilities like my wife and I? We have twins, five-year-old boys with autism who have struggles every day in Zoom. My wife writes you all emails. You can't even respond. Instead, we start hearing about how it's harassment and bullying. It's embarrassing to have kids in the district, and I'm embarrassed for you all. Let me tell you, from someone who works in the field that is often criticized, you need thicker skin, especially when you're in a position of authority, which means main jobs to serve the public. So stop claiming bullying and harassment when all you get are emails from parents asking to help their kids out. Considering the public pays my salary as a first responder, I don't have a choice whether or not to go into work. I show up, put a mask on, respond to calls all day in the streets. As a homeowner in this city, I pay taxes. It's crazy to me that the board is not listening to the parents in the community when we pay for our salaries and elected you into the positions you have. I sure hope you all find some morals and bring these kids with the greatest needs back into the classrooms. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Scott Swoboda. I'm at 437 Arguello Drive in Benicia. I'm a Benicia resident calling to provide public comment on agenda item 13.2, as well as general comment for open session. I have a daughter that is a junior and a son that is a freshman at BHS. My son is a special needs student and has an IEP. Benicia schools are what brought us to this town 18 years ago. The teachers and educators here have been fantastic, and we thank you for all you've done and are doing to educate our children. My kids need to return to in-person school badly. I want them to experience what high school has to offer academically, socially, emotionally, and physically. As a special needs student, my son is struggling mightily. This is a very important time frame in life for our kids, and it can literally shape the type of adults they will be and the type of career path they will take. The memories they will make will last a lifetime, and I want them to have positive memories of this time in their lives. They are our future. We need to take care of these soon-to-be men and women who will be our future. I realize this is not an easy decision, and that we all want to return to classes safely and feel as protected as we can. Because of that, I formed a small group that we call the BUSD Vaccine Task Force. This group is made up of some fantastic parents who are motivated to get their kids back to the classroom positively and safely. Our main goal is to get a vaccination clinic here in Benicia to vaccinate educators so that they may feel more comfortable returning to in-person classes. I have been in communications with Superintendent Dr. Charles Young, Benicia Mayor Steve Young, Dr. Bella Matias of Solano County, and School Board President Sherry Zeta. They are all trying very hard to move teachers up in priority to receive the vaccine. Other school districts have done this, namely Napa, Sacramento, Marin, and now Fairfield-Sassoon are going back and are vaccinating their educators in doing so. We are very close to being able to host a vaccination clinic here in Benicia. We have the probable venue, a group of motivated parents willing to help, and a knowledgeable mayor, city council, city manager, fire department, and police force ready to help when and if needed. They hosted an outstanding vaccination clinic a couple weeks ago, and they can help us do it again for our teachers. But we need one thing from the school board to make this happen. We need you to set a firm reopening date for March 22nd. Dr. Matias has stated that once we have a firm reopening date, he will send enough vaccine to us to cover the teachers who will be returning to in-person teaching. If you vote to return on March 22nd, the BUSD Vaccine Task Force will assist in whatever way possible to help our fantastic teachers return safely and protected to in-person classes, not just with the option to get vaccinated, but also with helping to ensure other safety measures are in place as well. We know they want to return. We know you want them to. And I know all parents and students want to as well. So please help them by voting for return to in-person classes on March 22nd. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. I am calling regarding item 13.2. I am asking that the board adheres to the tiered system allowing for in-person learning to resume. Current state guidelines allow for small groups to return to in-class instruction under the purple tier. To date, Benicia has failed to offer small group instruction under the purple tier, even to our most vulnerable students. Within the next couple of weeks, Solano County will likely hit the red tier. Current guidelines under the red tier allow for hybrid learning. With that being said, why the delay? Benicia schools should have been open last fall. However, a couple of you chose to be selfish rather than focusing on what is best for our students. A perfect example of this is a comment made by board member Maselli on Facebook the evening of November 19th, 2020, following the board meeting just moments prior. Teacher Laura Rourke made a post regarding how the board just voted to return to hybrid learning after the holidays. There were a few comments by other individuals expressing frustration and anger, and then board member Maselli commented, quote, "Let me see if we can fix this," end quote. Then at the very next board meetings on 12/10 and 12/17, board member Maselli asked for a revote as he didn't know what he was voting on. Clearly, this was board member Maselli's way of delaying our students from returning to in-class instruction. Enough time has been wasted. You continue to fail our students every single day you refuse to allow our schools to open. Small group instruction needs to begin immediately, and hybrid learning needs to begin once Solano County is in the red tier. Board members, this isn't rocket science. Schools have been proven to not be super spreaders. It is time to follow the science and guidelines provided to us by the medical experts, state leaders, and health departments. No more excuses. Our children's education and mental health is suffering at your expense. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nimat Shakur Grantham, and I am a Benicia resident. And I want to speak on, Well, I have a child who attended the Benicia Middle School and High School, and I want to talk about the item, I think 12.3, and 12.3. So again, I want to bring to your attention concerns that I have that the school district has not done enough to address racial inequity in our schools. I'm concerned about this because when my son was a student there in junior high school and high school, he went through quite a few racial incidents that were not addressed when brought to the attention of the teachers and the principals. And I had to take action on that because it just wasn't right. And to my knowledge, these children are still dealing with racial issues in addition to a disparity in being suspended and other things that are not good for their education. So definitely something needs to be done. And I just did find out about the teacher. I guess there was a teacher at the school who had them read a classical book. I don't know if it was To Kill a Mockingbird. Didn't want to say the N word, and then the teacher just wasn't sensitive to that, and the child was basically ridiculed and just wasn't listened to. So,
my name is Sarah Westmoreland. I live at 827 Wainwright Street in Benicia. I am commenting on item 12.3, the strategic plan. I am not a parent, but I am a community member who's lived in Benicia for 14 years, and I have been very dismayed at the racism that exists here in Benicia. And I think that we need to combat this on many fronts. And one of the main areas that we need to focus on is the school curriculum. Our school curriculum is not really representative of what really happened in American history, and I think that needs to change in order to better educate people on racial injustice and inequities. And I ask that you would bring the 1619 project curriculum into any other racial equity curriculum that you may have. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jean Walker. I live at 88 Danbury Way in Benicia. My comment is not an agendized item. This is regarding the recall. First, I would like to state that I oppose the current campaign to single out trustees Sherry Zada and Mark Maselli for recall. Recall is a waste of time and money, particularly now when we have neither to spare. I understand the motivation behind this recall is a parental concern that their children's education is being neglected in distance learning. I would ask the community members behind this recall campaign, where were your voices of outrage and urgency when others have been telling us for years that our African American students have been failing at disproportionate rates? Data collected by our own district leadership proves an inequitable experience for students, particularly our African American students and students with special needs. How can we as a community claim to care about student success without first doing something about two particular populations of students who are clearly being left behind? We don't have the resources or time to be engaging in a recall process when there is so much other work to be done to ensure academic success for all of our Benicia Unified School District students. In closing, I would like to express my support for all of our board trustees as you carry forward with the job of using your authority to ensure an equitable school experience for all students. Keep asking each other the hard questions and working for the greater good. I applaud the courage and commitment it takes to carry out your role. Thank you very, very much.
Hi, my name is Nimat Shakur Grantham, and I'm a Benicia resident, and I would like to address item 12.3. So I asked that in finalizing the Lcap goals, that all of the resources be developed and administered with equity in mind to those who are disproportionately impacted. They should basically benefit. I asked that the children who truly need to benefit from the Lcap process be provided with access to a safe and equitable learning environment when they return to school. in which teachers are provided with robust anti-racist training and administrators as well. And this includes restorative justice practices, racial equity trainings, and trauma-based interventions in practice. I strongly advocate for the children to learn from the 1619 project curriculum, as well as other culturally responsive curriculum. I feel this benefits all students, and I feel that this curriculum needs to be implemented throughout the Benicia school district with access to all the grade levels. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Kozak, and I am a Benicia resident calling to provide public comment on agenda item 13.2. COVID-19 has led many of us to become unqualified epidemiologists in planning school reopening. I am fortunate to have a master's of public policy degree from Johns Hopkins University, which included graduate coursework at a school that has been consistently rated the #1 public health school in the country. Despite this background, I do not claim to be a public health expert. Instead, my graduate degree has prepared me to listen, understand, and agree with the conclusions of our nation's public health experts that we can safely reopen schools. Today, I urge our board to also listen to our nation's public health experts and to approve in-person small group instruction. If you do not approve small group instruction this evening, it would be a statement that you disagree with the current guidance from the National Centers of Disease Control, the California Department of Public Health, and the California Department of Education. In my last public comment, I quoted guidance from the CDC on school operations. I was dismayed to see one of our board members shaking their head disagreeing with the CDC's recommendations. I would like to respectfully ask the qualifications of our board members who disagree with the CDC's recommendations and how their background enables them to come to differing determinations. What backgrounds or degrees in public health, epidemiology, or medical research do you have that is superior to the leaders of the CDC, to the leaders of the California Department of Public Health? This evening, I would also like to ask the board to affirm the previously approved reopening plan, which begins to incorporate in-person learning on March 22nd. Affirming this plan will enable the Solano County Department of Public Health to prioritize their educators to receive COVID-19 vaccinations. I stand ready and willing to support our educators in receiving vaccinations to feel safe in returning to in-person instruction. I've joined with over 40 parents and volunteers known as the BUSD Vaccine Task Force. We are ready to organize and administer a vaccination clinic for our teachers as soon as possible. By reaffirming this reopening plan, we can join other districts in our county and vaccinate our educators. I was overjoyed to learn Fairfield-Sassoon Unified School District has elected to return to in-person instruction and that they are now coordinating with the Solano County Public Health Department to operate a vaccine clinic for their teachers. Let's join them. Let's listen to our public health experts and pave the way for our educators to be vaccinated. Let's join Napa, Marin, and Sacramento County districts in embracing the guidance of our nation's public health leaders, vaccinating our teachers, and beginning to reopen for in-person instruction. Thank you.
Caius Case, 929 Rose Drive.
Hi, my name is Kai. I could to Joe Henderson. Please open our school and please go to the valley next week.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Ruiz. I am calling with a comment for item 13.2. My address is on Barton Way. I am calling yet again to ask to please start small groups and special education as soon as possible. After watching the presentation by Dr. Mateus and watching the presentation of the MOU back in November, I know our districts will keep our children safe. There is absolutely no reason that we have not started this yet other than fear. After watching the workshop on February 4th, that I am so glad all of you were a part of, I can tell there were many things that needed to be learned. I was extremely saddened by the Facebook posts that I have seen continuing after this meeting by Mr. Maselli. Jokes about our children returning to school and the social well-being of our children, I do not find funny. And I believe that that is him speaking for only one group of his constituents. And that is not okay with me by any means. So, to the rest of you, I truly hope that you listen to science and put our children's best interests first. Please allow small groups and special education to start as soon as possible. Our most critical children are counting on you.
Robert Crowley, I live over on Eaton Court. I am calling in regards to discussion item 12.3, the strategic plan and the LCAP goals. I wanted to speak specifically about the implementation of the 1619 project curriculum. I understand that the district is going through some trainings and webinars in order to find ways to get it implemented, and I think that's great. But I think parent voices are going to be really important, especially from African American parents and parents of African American kids. And finding a way to implement it not only in the high school and middle schools, but really K through 12. Talking to parents in our community, they find it really important that kids at the elementary school age are getting the correct education and understanding the true history of our country and what's going on. And so I just wanted to call in and make sure I reiterate the importance of the 1619 project curriculum, as well as other culturally responsive curriculum. And I hope that the board and the district is really looking at ways that we can implement it and be a leader within our state, within our country, in updating a curriculum that's well outdated in a way that's true, honest, supports everyone, and is fully inclusive. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Krista Heredia. I live on East K Street here in Benicia. I'm the parent of an adult son who attended Benicia Middle School as well as Benicia High School, and I have two more children currently attending Robert Semple Elementary. We love our school, Go Dragons. I'm calling in regard to discussion item 12.3, the strategic plan and LCAP process. When finalizing LCAP goals, I ask that all programs and resources be developed and administered with equity in mind. I encourage us not to get hung up on services and structures needing to benefit all students in order to be valuable. There are times when it's appropriate for students who have been disproportionately impacted to then disproportionately benefit. I ask that all children be provided with access to a safe and equitable learning environment when they return to school, with teachers who are provided with a robust anti-racist training module. I advocate for those trainings to include things like restorative justice practices, racial equity awareness training, and trauma-based interventions and practices. I strongly advocate for our children to have access to a curriculum that is historically accurate, reflective, and representative of the contributions of all ethnic groups to the culture of the United States. I ask that the district adopt the 1619 project curriculum as well as other culturally responsive curriculum into all of our classrooms. Then require all of our BUSD teachers to utilize these curricula to successfully integrate them into their daily teaching. Lastly, I would like to state that I oppose the current campaign that singles out our trustees, Sherry Zada and Mark Vaselli, for recall. A recall is a waste of time and money, particularly now when we have neither of those to spare. I understand the motivation behind this recall is parental concern that their children's education is being neglected in distance learning. A tough question that I have for those community members behind this recall campaign is, where were your voices of outrage and urgency when others have been telling us for years that our African American students have been failing at disproportionate rates? Data collected by our own district leadership proves that there has been an inequitable experience for our students, particularly African American students and our students with special needs. So how can we as a community care to claim about student success without first doing something about two particular populations of students who are clearly being left behind? We don't have the resources or time to be engaging in a recall process when there is so much other work to be done to ensure academic success for all of our students. In closing, I would like to express my support for all of our board trustees as you carry forward with the job of using your authority to ensure an equitable school experience for all students. Keep asking each other the hard questions and working for the greater good. I applaud your courage and commitment that it takes to carry out your role. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sarah Ferrucci, and I'm calling on item 13.2. At the February 6th board meeting, Carolyn Finders advised the board on roles and responsibilities of a governance team. She noted that, quote, many of you spoke about teachers. That's an awful strong sentiment to listen to your teachers here, which I would just say to you, I'm going to be friendly enough with you to say, be mindful that you're not so loyal to one voice that others, maybe like parents and others, think that you're not being heard because you are responsible for hearing from all, end quote. It's obvious that most of the members of this board forget they have a responsibility to represent the parents and the students. I urge you all to keep them at the center of your thoughts tonight. Consider the science and believe in your staff and teachers' ability to implement the safety guidelines and protocols. We're not asking for things that can't be accomplished. Whether you're willing to face it or not, it has been proven that throughout the entire world and in small towns all the way to large cities, from private to public schools, that it can happen. Science, the CDC, and pediatricians all agree it's time to reopen schools. It can be done safely. We're asking you to join the other Bay Area districts and open our schools. We ask that you vote to start small groups now and allow for hybrid to open as soon as possible and get Benicia Unified back on track. As the board has indicated, and I have mentioned, the focus has been one-sided. With that, I formally request the formation of a citizen advisory committee, specifically commissioned to the safe opening of schools in accordance with all applicable laws and guidance. I request this be done within the soonest legal timeline afforded. Thank you. Bye.
That concludes all of our public comment.
Sherry, you're muted.
Okay, is that better? Okay. I just want to thank the members of our public for taking the time to make those phone calls. We really do appreciate when you do share the information that you feel is important to be shared. So thank you again for that. And I want to kindly remind everybody to make sure from this time forward that when you are leaving a message to be played during our open session meeting, that you do leave a name. I think one got through without us, and we want to do better. Let's make sure it's all uniform. So again, thank you very much.
Ms. Zeta?
Yes.
We don't enter into a dialogue after public comment. What I did want to have Dr. Gill make a quick point of clarification because it's related to the safety plans that many parents talked about, and to differentiate the COVID safety plan and that MOU with what Mr. Thompson is going to talk about. So Dr. Gill, if you just take a second to do that, because I think it's important to note the difference.
Thank you.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Young. Good evening, everyone. So the 13.1, where Mr. Thompson is going to be talking about the safety plans, those are annual school safety emergency plans. That's what he's going to be bringing forward, not COVID-19 safety plan. COVID-19 safety plan is a totally separate document. That was a document that Dr. Young sent in his emails communicated, and we are in the process of finalizing that document. It will be consist of two different components. It will be it's called COVID-19 safety plan. Will have a checklist and a prevention program, COVID-19 prevention program. So we will be finalizing it and posting it on our website fairly soon.
Thank you, Dr. Gill.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. At this point, we're going to move on to item number 11, the consent calendar. 11.1, or excuse me, all matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be pulled and discussed. So we have 11.1, the minutes for the meetings of February 4th, 2021 and February 6th, 2021, and 11.2, approval of the personnel action list. Do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar as written?
Sherry, I'll move to accept and approve the calendar as presented tonight.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Cece. Can I have a roll call, Mrs.
Absolutely.
Martinez? Thank you.
Zeta?
Yes.
Trustee Grubbs? Yes. Trustee Maselli?
Yes.
Trustee Moss?
Yes.
And who am I missing? Trustee Ferrucci. Sorry, there you are. I was like, where
Yes.
where are my people? Thank you.
I'm hiding.
All right. So all those in favor, aye. All those opposed, nothing. So we go ahead and the motion carries. We're now moving on to 11.3, consideration and approval of resolution number 20-21-14. The resolution of the Benicia Unified School District is requesting the treasurer to make a constitutional advance to the district. Approval of resolution 2021-14 to transfer. We're requesting the County Board of Supervisors to authorize the county treasurer to transfer approximately $13,660,891 in one or more loans to the Benicia Unified School District to cover one or more cash shortages caused by delays in receipt of revenues from the state, which the district is lawfully entitled.
This one qualifies under the same first and second, so we can just do a roll call, President Seda?
Thank you very much. Roll call vote, please.
President Seda?
Yes.
Trustee Grubbs?
Yes.
Trustee Maselli?
Yes.
Trustee Moss?
Yes.
And Trustee Ferrucci?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Zeta, did we do the personnel action also?
That was, yeah, that was 11.1 and 11.2. Yeah, I said both.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Moving on to discussion items number 12. The first item up is Measure S Citizens Bond Oversight Committee's annual report. And let me see here. And Roxanne Egan, our bond director, is going to provide some information for us. And I believe also David Sells will be sharing some information. So Mrs. Egan, if you'd like to go ahead, thank you.
Thank you, President Zada. We have a couple of discussion items with updates for bond projects on the agenda tonight. The first one is an annual presentation with the report that's provided by our Bond Oversight Committee chair, and that new chair that just got elected or appointed is David Sells. So he's going to speak to the first item. And then the second item is it's a quarterly update for our most recent meeting that we had. After we have those, we always bring the same information shared and discussed at those meetings out to the board. So the first one's annual, and the second one is reflecting the quarterly stuff. So with that, I'll turn it over to David, and we're really pleased to have him as our new chair, and also just their ongoing commitment to the Oversight Committee.
Thank you, Roxanne. Good evening, and as Roxanne said, my name is David Sells, and I'm the chairperson for the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee for Measure S. As the chair of this committee, it's my privilege to present the annual report for fiscal year 2019 and 2020. But before I do, I'd like to thank the other committee members that take part in overseeing the proceeds from the bond measures, and that they're spent in accordance with the laws of the state of California. Joining me on this committee are the former chairs, Scott Burford, Todd Blaitler, and Andre Lewis. And we'd also like to welcome our newest committee member, Mark Hughes, that will join us for this coming fiscal year. We'd like to thank Chief Business Official Tim Rahill and Bond Director Roxanne Egan. We're grateful to both Tim and Roxanne for their strict attention to detail and incredible management of the bond funds and the reportings associated with it. We'd also like to thank Superintendent Dr. Charles Young for making time to be at our quarterly meetings, not only to share his updates, but also to ask for feedback as well. The purpose of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee is to inform the public on how the funds are being used, review bond expenditures, and present the annual report to the school board. So with that being said, the committee reports that the fiscal year 2019-2020, that the Benicia Unified School District has spent Measure S bonds proceeds according to the bond project list contained in the ballot measure, and is therefore in compliance with the requirements of California's Constitution, Article 13A, Section 1. The committee held 3 quarterly meetings this past fiscal year. We held one in October of 2019, January of 2020, and again in August of 2020, with the 3rd quarter meeting being canceled due to the onset of the COVID pandemic. The 3rd quarter information was presented during our 4th quarter meeting, however. At our quarterly meetings, the committee met to receive bond project updates and to review the bond expenditures list. And so for fiscal year 2019-2020, The committee reviewed bond expenditures of $7,226,000 plus. The 2019-2020 bond expenditures were spent on technology and infrastructure at $357,000, middle school campus modernization at $3.6 million, middle school seismic update at $242,000, high school performing arts building update at $426,000, Mary Farmer modernization design at $97,000, fire alarm upgrades throughout the district at $1.4 million, project management at $173,000, HVAC upgrades at $365,000, tennis court upgrades at the middle and high schools at $513,000, fencing at various locations for $41,000, and lighting and upgrades and other expenses at $55,000. So there was $19.2 million in Measure S funds remaining as of June 30th of 2020 to be spent on Measure S bond projects and to be reviewed by the committee at our quarterly meetings during the 2021 fiscal year. So in closing, it has been an honor to work with this amazing team of committee members and the staff at BUSD. I am proud to be part of this community that works to make our children's education a priority. And I would like to thank the board for their continued support of the Measure S bond projects. We have seen a great deal of improvements to our facilities this year and look forward to more to come in this next fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sells. I'd like to find out if anybody has any questions or if there's any discussion regarding the S quarterly bond update or the S Citizens Bond Oversight Committee's report. Nobody? Okay, then thank you again, Mrs. Egan, and also Mr. Sells. I appreciate all that you're doing to make this come to fruition. It's great. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to item 12.3, which is Dr. Beatson will report on the strategic plan Lcap process. The purpose of the report is to inform the board and public of the requirements, components, process, and timeline for the development of the 2021 through the 2024 strategic plan Lcap. So without further ado, Dr. Beatson, if you would like to take it away.
I would. Thank you so much. Thank you, President Zeta, members of the school board. I'm here to share with you the process which we are embarking on for our strategic plan Lcap for next year. Let me get this up and going here. Okay, so tonight I want to share with you that we're developing the strategic plan Lcap for our district's accountability plan for student success and the local control funding formula spending. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll revisit how this current year we had a one-year learning continuity and attendance plan that replaced the three-year Lcap, and that we are in the process of writing a new three-year Lcap, which will be a 2021 through 2024 Lcap. Everything we do is grounded in the foundation of our district's vision, where all students will achieve at their highest potential in an engaging, inspiring, and challenging learning environment. Several years ago, Dr. Young took our community through a process where we developed these organizational beliefs and desired characteristics. There's a lot of information in here. And as part of the stakeholder engagement process, which I'll talk about in a little bit, I will share with you how we are soliciting feedback on these as well. So the strategic plan Lcap was put into law in 2013-14 when we shifted our funding and budgeting in the state of California to the local control funding formula. So accompanying that shift in budgeting processes, we needed to create an accountability plan which outlines our goals, actions, services, and budgets. And there are several compliance pieces that go along with this as well. And there are also a set template that the state gives us that we have to use for this plan. A couple of years ago, the school board decided to also use this local control accountability plan. The Lcap is our district strategic plan. And so we make it really broad and robust in order to have it really drive the work that we do and use it as a roadmap for continuous improvement. The document, when it's written in its entirety, is probably close to 180 pages. It's quite robust. And I just wanted to remind everyone about what is in that document. So the document starts with a 3-year plan summary. I always think of that as the cliff note. So if you don't want to read all 180 pages, you can get a pretty good gist of what will be in the plan in that summary. The annual update is a section. In the new template that we'll be using this year, the annual update is built right into the goals section instead of having it be sort of a standalone chapter, if you will. And that is where we talk about what we planned to do and what we actually were able to implement and what we plan to spend and what actually happened. And so when I present to you in May our Lcap for approval, the annual update will be for the 2019-20 Lcap, because we did not implement one this past year due to COVID, or this current year rather, due to COVID. The annual update will also be presented in May for the LCP, the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan, which we did implement this year in place of the Lcap. Another section of the entire Lcap document is a robust stakeholder engagement. And so by Ed Code, we are required to consult with several stakeholder groups, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And in Benicia Unified, we actually go above and beyond that and have a whole team that is put together with our union leadership and parents and district leadership to really look and collaborate on all the information gathered that goes into the Lcap. There's also the section on budget. The budget is aligned with the actions. That is a new way the Lcap will look this year. Instead of having in the past the goals, the actions and services were on some pages and then the budgets were on the following pages. This time they will all be aligned, which will be much easier to read. The other thing to note is that there are 8 state priorities that must be addressed in the Lcap, everything from implementing of state standards, course access, achievement in terms of the state test, and EL, English language proficiency, AP pass rate, parent involvement, attendance, chronic absenteeism. So we have a lot of pieces that we have to report on, and there are 23 metrics that we have to address as well. Another component of the Lcap is the identification of concentration funds by action. And so the concentration funds are the funding that we get for our English learner, foster youth, homeless, and socioeconomically disadvantaged. It's a small bump in funding that we get for those student groups. And this time we will be able to identify which particular actions in our Lcap are addressing those student groups. That is a requirement by Ed Code. We have some changes. There's a whole narrative section in the Lcap, and that sort of tells the story. And so there's some changes in the questions on there. And then we have to give a description of how the needs of the EL, low income, foster youth, and homeless were considered first before selecting each action to be provided school and district wide. So there's a few changes that you'll see in the Lcap this coming school year. In addition to the Lcap document itself, there will be an Lcap parent budget overview that will be brought to you in May, and then the Lcap federal addendum, which is another component, and it's a bridge between the federal funding that we get and our local funding, state funding rather. So what do we need to do? Currently, we need to write a new 3-year Lcap, which will be our strategic plan. We need to consider the impacts of COVID-19. We need to solicit some additional feedback and we will also be able to use our prior stakeholder engagement and data with gathering this new information. So what did we already do? I have to bring you back to just a little over a year ago in January. We held some robust stakeholder engagement. All of our staff had the ability to do that at our January 19th PD day. where they went through and really analyzed our data and gave feedback on all the actions and services and goals and did prioritization. We did that with our students, and we had forums with our families. We also sent out surveys. Then we created an LCAP task force made up of staff and families, or parents rather, where we looked at all of the priorities and all of the data and sliced and diced it, and then came up with a strategic plan that we brought to you for the 2020 to 2023 school year. Well, we were going to bring it to you in May. That was not implemented due to COVID, but it was, we had all of that data and feedback. The priorities that we identified last January were really around social emotional learning, technology and intervention, and then increasing pathways for our students. And so we brought this information to our LCAP. We call ourselves the El Capitans. It is our staff and our parent group that meets monthly to work on the LCAP and believe that these are still the right priorities, but we had some additions, which I will share with you in a minute. The other piece that we need to consider, even though we have all of this robust feedback from a year ago, is this commitment and focus to equity and opportunity. And that needs to be a very clear through way through all of the work in the LCAP. We also need to consider that potentially our students will have been learning from home for almost a year. And what is the impact of that? Another piece is that when we can flip that over and say, what opportunity do we have? Because education has looked relatively the same for hundreds of years. And so, as Dr. Young likes to say, our system is unfrozen for the first time in a lot of years. And so it's an opportunity to stop and think about how do we want to reset as we come back on board. And another piece to consider, because we saw technology in the previous priority, is that our teachers and staff and students have had to really significantly expand their tech skills over this past school year. And so that is still a priority, but the priority has shifted a bit. We have some new data that we considered as we looked at what areas we wanted our goals to be in and what we need to do for actions and services. I reviewed this data with you a couple of meetings ago, so I'm not going to go through it again. But what it did continue to highlight for us is while we have some areas of celebration, we also have some major disparities that we need to continue to address through an equity lens. So I bring to you just where we are right now. We have expanded. We've always had 3 goals in our LCAP, and based on feedback and data, we are proposing that we will expand to 4 goals. One will have a major standalone equity goal. At some point, we really want this goal to be the foundation inside of every other thing that we do, and we're striving to do that. But right now, we, as a team, felt like it needed to be called out on a goal of its own. We also have a social emotional goal, and this goal was developed previously, but we've expanded it a bit. And then 2 academic goals, one that really focuses on literacy in the humanities and one that focuses on math and STEAM. And STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And so these are just draft wording. We expect them to change and shift as we collect stakeholder engagement. But as we said, the first goal is on equity. It's really about opportunity, access, removing barriers, and really getting to know our students for who they are, and especially our students who are Black, socioeconomically disadvantaged, English learners, LGBTQ, so particular groups that have been historically underserved and underrepresented. And so that's the focus of that goal. The social emotional goal, we're really looking at creating that sense of belonging for students in our school community so that they feel challenged in an environment that values individuals and is accepting, respectful, safe, and supportive. The 2 academic goals, the components that we added in these 2 goals that would be different from where we were last year at this time, was a piece around closing the performance gaps so that they're virtually non-existent. So while we want students to have mastery on grade level literacy and humanities standards, we added humanities in there as well, because we know that we need to look at the historical perspective. Across all content areas, we also need to really focus that on closing the achievement gap. And then the same is true for mathematics and that application of mathematics standards in those other areas. And so that we don't have the disparities between different student groups. So that's where we are with goal development at this point. Again, they're proposed and they're draft. We are posing those to a variety of parent groups and students and staff to collect and solicit more feedback before they become finalized. So right now we're in the midst of stakeholder engagement. We're meeting with all of our teachers through staff meetings, reviewing the data, the process, getting their feedback on questions and on those goals. We will be meeting with District Curriculum Council next week. We've sent out surveys to parents. There are parent groups that are processing this as well at the school sites. Our administrative council has looked at this work as well. Our parent advisory for the Lcap. Next week we meet with our DLAC, which is our District English Language Arts Committee. This past week we met with our African American Parent Advisory Committee, and they gave some feedback on these goals. We have a meeting next week with our special ed parent group, and we will be bringing this to them too to get their very specific feedback through that equity lens. Our unions and our students, we will be collecting feedback from them as well through focus groups and parent surveys and staff meetings. So the next few pages really are the questions that we are soliciting feedback on. The first few are really about thinking about the future of education. What things did we learn about in virtual learning that we want to continue as we move back to full-time in person? What things did we get to stop doing during virtual learning that we said, you know what, these practices don't need to continue anymore when we come back in person? And then what other new and innovative practices should we consider? And this really gets to that point of unfreezing and thinking about the future of education and BUSD. Then we have a series of questions around equity and cultural identity, because we really want to hear the voices of our different cultural and racial groups in our district about what their experience has been so that we can better meet their needs. We've talked about barriers and what kinds of supports, what kinds of interventions and supports do we need to provide for our students who are struggling. And then trainings, what trainings do our staff need? And then the next are a series of feedback about how well are we implementing and achieving our vision, our belief statements, and our characteristics of a Benicia graduate, because we really want to lean into those and find out where we're doing well and what areas we need to continue to grow in. So I just talked about the work that we're doing in February is really about stakeholder engagement, and I will be working with our business office to write the annual update for the local control accountability plan for the 1920 year, and then the learning continuity plan for this school year. Next month, we will be working with the El Capitans to synthesize and analyze all the stakeholder feedback, revise the goals as needed based on that feedback, draft some actions and services, align budgets, and then we'll be compiling all of this into a draft LCAP. In April, we need to send that draft LCAP to the county office for feedback, and then if there are any revisions that need to be made, we'll make those during April. In the end of May, I will bring you the LCAP to a public hearing, and then we bring it back in June for adoption, and then it goes to the county office for final approval in July, and then they send it off to the state for the final approval. And that is where we are with the LCAP process and what you can expect over the course of this year. And I'd like to open it up for any discussion or feedback that you have in what you've heard tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
A little bit.
I hear like I hear feedback, and I know what. I just Sherry, I don't know. Can everybody else mute? Maybe I don't know if that's what it is.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely hearing something behind you. I was
Okay.
muted.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to know, in terms of curriculum, is it the district curriculum council that you guys have the discussions around curriculum, or was it around looking at the goals? Does curriculum ever come up in terms of, because you shared about making sure that we're addressing the needs of all of our students. So does curriculum come up in those conversations, or has it, or is there anything that is coming up around curriculum? You're muted, Leslie. Dr. Beatson, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. So yes, we look at curriculum, and I can ask Stephanie if she wants to, Ms. Rice, if she wants to address any of this as well. We had what we thought was a pretty robust process for looking at curriculum, and we are looking at even coming up with a new and improved process as well, based on feedback that we've heard. So when a department wants to or needs to look at curriculum, we look at a variety of state approved, that's usually on the state list, curriculum that are standards based. They review several of them. We choose a few to pilot, and we have an evaluation document that we use, and a big portion of that has been around equity, but we're looking for some additional tools as well. We do bring that information to District Curriculum Council and review it with them, but the department and the teachers have a lot of say in what that curriculum is and how it meets their needs. And we always test out a few, and we also put it out for public view so that parents can come in and review that as well. And we put that information out in typically the school newsletter for whichever school department is looking at a particular curriculum. One of the
Can I add on to that?
Yes, please do.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
I was just going to also add on that actually our next district curriculum council meeting is next Wednesday. And our main focus is to reanalyze our protocol for evaluating or adopting curriculum. We did rework it. I guess it's been about a year, maybe 2 years, Dr. Beatson, and we definitely have a lens for equity and universal access. But we're going to bring it back to the table with the team. We also pulled the tool from Learning for Justice, formerly Teaching Tolerance, as a lens to evaluate curriculum. So we're going to bring that to the team and see if what we have in place is robust enough with the lens of equity, as well as looking at then how to reevaluate the curriculum that we have. So that will be our next meeting, as well as looking at and reviewing all the professional learning that we've been doing on equity and looking forward to the future. So you were reading my mind, Dr. Moss.
So it sounds like you have some curriculum in mind, but you're going to use a lens to evaluate it to make sure. Well, first you're going to use the lens to evaluate the curriculum that we already have in place to see if it fits this equity lens that you're looking through, and then do you also have other curriculum that you're looking into, or you're just going to wait and evaluate what we have first? And then with that being said, are you taking recommendations, or these recommendations are only coming from, it sounds like, staff? Is that correct?
All of the above, what you said. So, we have certain processes where we have to use, state recommended curriculum depending on what grade levels. So we have some of that in place, but we know that curriculum is always a tool. So always reevaluating to look and see if there are other resources or tools that can always add to, definitely to what we have. So all of those things, looking forward to adoptions and also looking back at what we have in place currently.
Okay, and then on that curriculum meeting that you have next week, there is that a community, kind of like community members, teachers? Is it a combination of parents, or is it like that? I'm just trying to get a feel for that committee. Like, who are the bodies on that committee that would be contributing to that conversation?
So currently, District Curriculum Council, we always have. Well, we try to have representation from every site. I actually this evening just sent out an email. We're trying to recruit some more teachers from some sites that we don't have representation for, but we also have Mrs. Ferrucci and Miss Zeta also are representatives on our district curriculum council as well as administration.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, Dr. Beatson, thank you. That was a lot of work, and
You're
I
welcome.
really appreciate the effort that you put in to giving us all the updated information. We really do appreciate it.
My
And
pleasure.
I think I was so excited to hear your presentation that I skipped over a whole 12.2, and that's the Measure S quarterly bond update. And so I'm going to invite Roxanne Egan, Miss Egan, if you'd come and talk to us about that. I was so excited about Dr. Beatson that I went right past you. Sorry. Please.
No problem.
Please present. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. And really, it's just a continuation. So David shared with you the annual report, which is an overview perspective of the entire year. And then what I have to share out with you is from our quarterly meeting that we had on January 28th with the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. You have the entire packet that was shared with that committee in your packets. And so I'm just going to kind of touch the highlights. And then if you have any questions, we're happy to delve into any detail that you'd like. So one of the big things on their agenda was that the prior chair, who was Scott Burford, he turned out in October. So he was great and we appreciate him, but he is no longer the chair since he can't be on the committee anymore. And so their first action that they did was to elect David as the new chair. And then his co-chair, or his assistant chair, is Todd Blaitler. So that was great. We're glad to have them on board. We also had, this was the first meeting with our new meeting member, our first committee member meeting, Mark Hughes. So we were really grateful to have him joining our committee and kind of getting him engaged in that conversation in the process. So the annual audit report and expenditures were reviewed and they were unanimously approved. And then we also reviewed the project list, which I would like to share my screen. Let's see if I can do this. Can you guys see the agenda now? Are you looking at that? Great. So I'm going to, this is the full packet, but what would like to do is to just quickly bring up and look at the project list. So we have this as a running kind of progress report for projects that we've completed and where we are. On the left is this first column is our completed bond projects. Down below that is our bond projects currently in construction. And then on the right-hand side is a column showing our approved bond projects that are funded and they're in our prioritization, but they're up and coming next. They're not quite in planning yet because we have too much other stuff going on. The items that moved from being in construction up to the completed for this current update are the middle school modernization phase 1 and then the Liberty High School and DO fire alarm. So that completes the fire alarm upgrades across all of our district sites. So we were really pleased to get that done. The next projects that are coming up is the high school Marquee, which is actually in construction now. We're going to be doing some landscaping around the Marquee. And then we have window replacements at Liberty High School. And we are definitely making good strides and progress on the Mary Farmer campus modernization. We had a meeting with the site users and just right now we're in DSA for HVAC improvements at that site. So those are really the biggest highlights that I was going to share out. I went into a lot of depth on some of the Mary Farmer design upgrades at our last meeting. So I was going to keep it short and sweet and just let you know where we're at. If you have any questions or want us to go into more detail, we're happy to.
Thank you, Ms. Egan. Any board members have any questions or comments? No. Okay. Now I would let you leave. Thank you so much.
You guys have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay. Now we're going to move on to item number 13, our non-consent action items. First one up is 13.1, consideration and approval of the site and district safety plans. And I am going to have Sean Thompson, the VP at Benicia High School. Would you be able to share with us?
Of course. Good evening. I'll get that. Let me
Thank
share that
you.
with you guys. All right, is everybody able to see that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So thank you, President Zeta, trustees, board members, and of course, our stakeholders and parents watching at home. So today I have two things to discuss with you. The first being the presentation and some highlights from the comprehensive school safety plans, as well as providing a district safety report as I started doing last year. I want to kind of continue that as a yearly trend so you can know what's going on in the district with my work and the work at the sites. So in regards to the comprehensive safe school plans, always want to remind everyone that these are now a standardized format. That doesn't mean just visually. Once you're within them, we work to make sure the organizational format is uniform, and all of our crisis response protocols are also the same. There's two reasons for that. One is that safety experts and our partners at Benicia Police, really want us to be able to do that. It also is good for our students knowing that a majority of our students start in our elementary schools and then later graduate from Benicia High School or Liberty High School. So as they progress, having a consistent understanding of what those protocols are great for our students because it allows them to kind of keep increasing their practice and their knowledge and hopefully get more comfortable with crisis response. Some notes for our plans this year. There are no major updates reflected in our school safety plans this year, but I want to stress that's a huge positive. This is the result of a lot of very hard work at our sites with our principals and our site councils and school safety teams and the volunteers and teachers there that are helping with those, as well as our partnership with Secure Educational Consultants from back in 2018 that provided some really excellent feedback to our district. Site safety meetings, I held those actually right before COVID started with all of our site principals, and information from those meetings also helped inform them. The site safety reviews were conducted by site administrators, and they do that as part of the annual plan updates. And so anything that they found in those reviews would be reflected in their individual site plans. The best way to kind of summarize all of the plans this year are that general updates were done to format. There was some removal of redundant information, some outdated language that increased readability and just kind of reduced the document size for each file. And then just to reinforce what Dr. Gill said earlier, it's important to note that our comprehensive safe school plans are part of EdCode and focus just on crisis response, that our COVID safety plans are separate documents that, as she said, will be available on the website when those are completed soon. So for the safety update, the first thing I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of was an excellent opportunity. We went through a TIG training with a group of our administrators as well as campus supervisors. This opportunity came through Solano County Office of Education from the ongoing work with the county level safety and emergency team that I represent Benicia at. Myself, as well as representatives from other districts in Solano County, gave feedback to Deputy Superintendent Tommy Welsh, as well as some of the other Solano County office personnel, and they responded by bringing this opportunity for the Consortium on Trauma, Illness, and Grief in Schools. This 7-part series started in October of last year and went through this past January and focused on a myriad of issues and subjects, including trauma support, supporting families, threat assessment, which is an ongoing goal of ours, and also concluded with a 2-day intensive PD that allowed the opportunity for certification in critical incident stress management, which I'm happy to say I was able to accomplish. And then there were some really good opportunities on developing network support resources with all of our neighboring districts. So it was just a really fantastic opportunity. So I want to make sure I thank Solano County Office of Education for making that available to us. Sorry, I feel like I dropped off and came on. Am I live again? Okay, thank you. So for our current safety work, understandably, COVID-19 safety support took up most of the time since the pandemic began. And so I've been assisting Maintenance Operations Director Romero. It's been a great partnership to be able to work through those plans and continue to build those plans. We, of course, continue to foster our valuable relationship with Benicia Police, Benicia Fire, and the City of Benicia. And also want to make sure I thank the Maintenance Operations Department again. They've been doing a really great job of working on our sites, especially with students being gone, to make sure they are as safe as possible when we return. And then,
Sean, you're not sharing your screen anymore. I don't know if you have more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's dropped me off and on twice. So let me reshare. I apologize. Is that working again?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. There we go. You've been able to hear me though, correct? Okay. Yep. Thank you. And then finally, just for future safety work, we're going to continue to work towards our goal of forming a BUSD-wide threat assessment team, something that unfortunately kind of took a backseat with the pandemic, but as we start talking about in-person schooling again, will come back up into the forefront, as will our drill development once in-person school resumes. And then, of course, just continued plan updates focusing on some improvement of maps. I've had some excellent conversations with Principal Harley at Farmer, where we both recognize that while we're two separate, schools, in a lot of crisis situations, we need to be on the same page as far as being able to communicate with one another. So we're working to get those into place. And then finally, working on elementary specific crisis response language. Some feedback was offered, some very good constructive criticism from our elementary staff and stakeholders that it would be good to kind of work on some more specific language and supports for them, because what we have tends to be focused a little bit more on secondary. Right. With that, that's kind of what I have for you tonight. I appreciate the audience. It's an honor to be able to work in this position.
Thank you so much for the information. I know it's a lot of effort that goes into doing this, and thank you, Mr. Romero, also for participating in working with you together to make this available to all of our staff and students and parents, everybody. Anybody have any questions or discussion regarding this item? No? Okay, Mr. Thompson.
If I could just say that it is a real pleasure to work with Sean. He is very organized and safety minded. And so it's a pleasure to be able to combine forces and get this work done. It's been waiting for a while. So thank you, Sean.
Of course, really mutual.
You're a good team. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for being here. With that, we're going to move on to item 13.2, and that is consideration and approval of in-person small group instruction.
President Zeta, we need to take action on his item
Oh,
first.
I'm so sorry. You are right. Do I have a motion to approve the approval of the site and district safety plan?
I'll move to approve the site and safety plans as presented tonight by Mr. Thompson.
I will. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you both. We need to do a roll call vote.
Yes, President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Moss. I didn't hear her. Did she say yes?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Trustee Maselli?
Yes.
Trustee Grubbs?
Yes.
And Trustee Ferrucci?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're moving on to 13.2, consideration and approval of in-person small group instruction. And at this time, I'm going to invite Dr. Beatson back to share with us information regarding this.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's my honor to bring back small group, in-person small group instruction plans based on the request from the last meeting. We have some additional information to share with you. get loaded up here. So tonight, what I want to really focus on are two possible structures for in-person small group. One is targeted. Those would be students that we have identified as meeting district criteria to receive ongoing small group instruction. And the other is based on teacher choice. And that would really mean if a teacher has a student who's struggling with a particular concept, they may call that student or a small group of students in, or if a teacher wants to have students demonstrate a particular lab in a science class, or things like that. So it would be really teacher choice, where teachers would identify who the students were, when they would meet with them, around what topic. What I did since we met last time was sent out a survey to staff asking them 4 questions, 3 of which you see here on your screen, and I'll walk you through this chart in just a minute. The first question was, and remembering, let me back up for 1 second, that in our return to school in-person MOU that was ratified and approved by the school board back in, I believe, October or November, for the small group portion of that MOU, it was for teachers to volunteer to do small group if we were to do that in purple before we went back in hybrid. So the teachers had 4 choices, and they could choose as many of those 4 choices as they liked. One was that they were willing to volunteer to do small group instruction with students from their own class Monday through Thursday who meet district criteria, and I'll talk about the district criteria in just a moment. Another choice was that they would be willing to volunteer to do small group instruction with students from their school Monday through Thursday who meet district criteria. So that would be if a particular teacher or counselor didn't have particular students in their own classroom but wanted to work with other students who were struggling in the school. That is what that second choice is. The third choice is the other teacher choice one, where teachers could choose to work with students from their class that they're identifying on a schedule that they create for whatever purpose that they would need. And then the fourth choice was they were not able or willing to volunteer at this time. So we had 109 responses to the survey, so not everyone responded. And out of that, we have 14 teachers and 2 counselors who have volunteered to work in some way, shape, or form with small groups. And so, as you can see here, this is elementary teacher number 1. This person has said that they would do any of these 3 options. So elementary teacher 2 says they will either do students from their school or students that they choose from their own class when they need to do that. And then you can see we have elementary teacher 3 would do students from their own class Monday through Thursday based on district criteria. So that would be basically, we would be working with them to set up those groups, or students from their own class. So that's kind of how you read this chart. And as I said, we have 14 teachers, 9 elementary school teachers, 4 Benicia high school teachers, 1 teacher from LHS, and then a counselor from Benicia middle school and a counselor from LHS have also volunteered. And then the other piece of information you asked for last time we met was how many students meet the criteria. And so right now, because of COVID, we haven't been able to successfully implement large-scale assessments. And so we have a variety of things that teachers are using, and then we work with them, and that feeds into their report card or transcript at the elementary level. And so what we looked at for our district criteria in consultation with our with some of our teachers and our intervention teachers was that we looked at the reading or ELA grade on the report card. So for elementary, it was trimester 1. They haven't completed trimester 2 yet. And that means they got a 1 because the elementary report cards give a 1, 2, 3, or 4. And at the secondary level, it would be students that were in English that received a D or an F. And that was as of their current grade of February 10th was when we had pulled this data. And so you can see we have students at every grade level that meet that criteria, some more than others. Interestingly, I'll just point out at Benicia High School, they did a pretty deep dive into their data at one of their recent staff meetings, and they had not significantly more Fs than they've had in the past. It's still more than we like to see, and we're still having conversation about what do we need to do something different about that anyway. But it's not significantly more than what they've had in the past, and they've had significantly more As. And so, while that's a good thing, it's also showing that we continue to have that achievement gap there. So we have more students than we will be able to serve with the numbers of teachers that have volunteered for small group, and that's small group in person. So I just also want to remind the board that many of our teachers are pulling small groups or meeting with students individually or virtually as well. So if you approve this evening that we can move forward with small groups in person, what I will do next is meet with our principals and share the data of which teachers and which students would be working with small groups. Then the principals would in turn meet with their teachers who volunteered and set up that schedule and time. And then the schools would contact the students and make sure that they are interested in coming in for small group instruction. And then the principals will also review with teachers and families the required safety protocols that need to be in place in order to have the students on campus. And so I want to take just a minute to review with you what those health and safety measures are. So over the next couple of slides, I've pulled out of all of our memorandums of understanding and the work that our amazing team has done to put together all of these things, because we are really prepared to have students and staff back on campus. So under health measures for protection, all TK to 12 students and all staff must wear masks. That is an expectation and a mandate. If a student is unable to, or a staff is unable to for a medical reason, they need to have a verified medical note. And then we would provide them with a shield with a neck drape tucked in. And if students refuse to wear masks, and this is put out by the California Department of Public Health, is that students will be excluded from coming to in-person school if they refuse to wear masks. We have set up 6 feet social distancing in all of our classrooms. The desks will be 6 feet apart. The teacher's desk will be 6 feet apart. We have training protocols set up for all staff that they've completed. And then the other piece is that we would be providing as needed individual supplies, so there wouldn't be supply sharing or equipment sharing among students. For hygiene, hand washing and or sanitizing upon entrance of the school site, before and after recess, entering any new space. All classrooms that have sinks will have soap, will have no touch paper towel, ways to get paper towels, and all spaces will have that sanitizer as well. In terms of wellness, we are asking our families when they come back in to do daily self-screening at home. And we will send out weekly reminders to them. That is actually once we're back in hybrid. So all of this applies to hybrid as well. So we will ask them to do a daily self-screen with all of the symptoms, and then the school will send weekly reminders to families to be doing those. We are requiring folks to stay home when they're sick. We have a separate isolation or sick room. So if a student is at school and becomes ill, we have set up separate isolation rooms where students will wait until their parent or guardian can come and get them. Terry Dean, our amazing school nurse, along with our HR department, has been working on contact tracing and notifications. We have all of those protocols set up, and those have been in place since August. And Nurse Terry has been part of the weekly COVID liaison meetings through the Solano County Health Department, and they provide contact tracing updates and support. And we have all of the documentation that goes out if there were to be any sort of exposure or case. So we also have, if there is a positive case, folks would quarantine, and then any close personal contacts that have been exposed to a positive case will be notified and self-isolate per the county regulation. The other piece is that before any in-person hybrid would start, and then before any in-person small group would start, there is a parent consent form which goes over all of this information as well. It reviews all of the signs and symptoms and all of the expectations that we're asking parents to do and the requirements, and they have to sign off on that. In terms of safety measures, our amazing admin team has been working together to create individual site safety plans. So we have memorandums of understanding, which you all have copies of as well. And then they've taken those and they're working with the individual sites to say, what does this look like in action at, say, Robert Semple Elementary School when it says multiple ingress and egress sites? So with Mr. Thompson, they've walked the sites, they've looked at how families will enter and exit schools, and they've got all of that planned out. That's a hard one. Personal protective equipment, PPE, will be provided for staff. Every staff member will get, I believe it is 5 cloth or daily 3-ply disposable masks, and students will receive masks as well. So we will have those for them. They'll have to bring them to school, but we will also have extra ones there should someone forget any. Our custodial and maintenance team will do daily cleaning with disinfectant. They will use electrostatic fogging. Hold on, my thing is in the way here. For a thorough application of that disinfectant, social distancing will be enforced. There will be marked walkways throughout the campus. All classrooms will be marked with the total capacity so that everyone knows that there's this many desks and students can be in there 6 feet apart. If the teacher requests, we will provide clear dividers for their workspace. And another change, especially at the elementary school. So in the past, students would arrive at school, they would gather perhaps on the playground until the bell rang when the teacher came out and picked them up on their lines to go in. Right now, and again, some of this is hybrid, but the students would go right through and head right to the classrooms where the teacher will greet them, so there won't be that gathering or mingling out on the yard. We're not requiring any in-person meetings, and we have our upgraded filtration system and ventilation system. For in-person small group, we will not have any recess or lunch on the sites, so that won't be a factor. If we come back in hybrid at some point, or I should say when we come back in hybrid, recess at the elementary school cohorts, so every classroom will have a designated space, and teachers and staff will go out and supervise. The equipment will not be shared, and at this time, we're not using play structures, though that is allowed through the new CDPH regulations. So, and there won't be really long extended breaks at the secondary level. And then lunch at the elementary, when we're back in hybrid, there will be no lunch on campus. It will be a grab and go. And at the middle school or at Liberty, at the high school, at Benicia High School, they will have lunch during hybrid, but the lunch period is longer. They have identified more areas for students to have lunch so that they will be 6 feet apart, and there will be supervision with staff and campus supervisors out monitoring students to help reinforce that as well. I think I talked about this already. We have ingress and egress plans, multiple entrances and exits so that we don't have congregation of students. There's no touch sanitizing stations upon entrance. Face coverings are required. We have directional routes. So a lot of work has been done by our amazing team to ensure that we are ready. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to kind of say with this. And I talked about contact tracing. At this point, for any sort of weekly testing, we are working on the best ways for our district to meet staff testing needs based on the CDPH and OSHA guidelines, and we'll provide you more information and when a formal decision is made. So we are always reminding staff that free COVID testing is available through the county health department and their personal healthcare providers. And so that was a lot of information, and so I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you would like to have discussion around this topic any further, and that we're hoping that you approve small group instruction for teachers who volunteer as presented.
Okay, I'm getting reverb. Okay, there we go. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, Leslie. And I had a lot of questions that you answered, and I really had a few more questions, if you don't mind. With the small groups, these questions are all very specific to the small groups. Because those teachers are still going to be doing their distance learning with the rest of their kids. So when are they fitting in this small group time? I was just curious about that.
Yep, great question. And so it would be different at different levels. The Monday through Thursday small group at the elementary, many of the teachers right now do the bulk of their instruction in the morning, and many of them right now are calling small groups or individual students all afternoon. So they could instead choose to do that in the afternoon instead of doing it more online.
Yeah.
At the secondary, it is trickier because they teach they follow their schedule. So most likely the teachers at the high school level that volunteered would do it on their own schedule. They might call students in on a Friday. They might call students in perhaps while they're Zooming if they want students to demonstrate a lesson. That would be up to them about when they could fit it in, but it would be within their workday. But that's why I think the high school would work best with the kind of on the teacher's choice.
Yeah, let the teacher choose when they want to do it. Yeah, the elementary does seem to lend itself a lot better than secondary to that. With the amount of kids that did, and I'm sorry guys, if anybody else has questions, please, I'll back up. With the amount of kids that did qualify for the small groups under the criteria, obviously, like you said, we're not going to be able to get to every kid. Is there going to be like a pod of kids that will work? Let's say a teacher didn't say necessarily, I only want to work with kids from my classroom or my own kids. Is there going to be a pod where we're going to be able to control the amount of kids that a teacher that volunteered sees? So, I mean, you're not going to try to cycle all the kids that need help through.
No, the way, that's a great question. The way we worded it was that they would get to see one group of students. So it wouldn't be, on Mondays, one group, on Tuesdays, another group. It would be that they'd work with a group.
And on that note too, we did discuss this back on the 4th, if I'm not mistaken. Have we made any decisions in terms of the size of those groups? And I do really appreciate so many people have quoted the CDC this, the CDC that, the science this, the science that. And those 6 feet apart is a major part of it, along with the masks. And I really appreciate the fact that you said, hey, masks are going to be required. And if a kid refuses to wear one, they go back to distance learning, and that all the desks are set up 6 feet apart. I really appreciate that. So with that, have we talked about how many people are going to be in these small groups?
We have not at this point, beyond the conversation that we had last meeting. In the MOU, it does say, and in the CDC guidance, it does say up to 16, and that is including the adults and the students in the classroom. That said, especially for our younger students who are really struggling in a particular academic area, we know that smaller groups, when we have intervention teachers or our reading tutors working with small groups, typically it's 5 or 6 students, but not 16.
And yeah, no, I appreciate that. And just structurally, I don't see how you fit 16 desks in a room 6 feet apart. I mean, I don't know how many classrooms are that big.
We can, and I think Mr. Romero has already measured that, because when we come back in hybrid, if there are 30 students in a class and we can take up to 50% of them, that is about 15 or 16, depending on the grade level. But they can fit. I think Mr. Romero, you've gone in and measured the classrooms.
That is correct. From where the child sits or the student sits to the next chair where the next student would sit, and we measured all 4 directions from them.
Like a circle.
We can get a 6 foot distance.
Now, I would think that the classrooms throughout the district are not uniform in size. So
Generally,
guys,
they are. There are a few that are unusual, maybe a couple of the older buildings, but generally the classrooms are standard. We did have to move some furniture out and in order to accommodate the 6-foot clearance, and some of that furniture was big shelving and whatnot, and we were able to get it out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to open it up to other board members that may have some questions or anything. Is there anything from Dr. Moss,
I don't
Mrs.
I don't really have any questions at this time. I do just appreciate you bringing back the additional information that we wanted, and so at least we have some idea around numbers. And then I appreciate, of course, that folks have choices, so it's a choice. So I appreciate having the information. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh,
Mrs. Grubbs, or who was, I'm trying to see who was talking.
I really appreciate your coming back and answering all those questions, Dr. Beatson. What I'm wondering about is the small group number. I think that at the last meeting and I think it was Diane's motion was to have a small group not larger than 5. Was that correct, Diane?
Yeah.
Yes, it was. But, also I have since gone back and reread the MOU and saw that it was already clearly negotiated
But I believe that was for hybrid.
Right.
And identified. So number is going to vary, but there really was a negotiated set already for the group, which I hadn't read anymore.
Yep, it is. It's under the small group section of the hybrid of the in-person hybrid MOU, because the hybrid part says no more than 50% of the student contacts that the teacher can have. And then the small group part says no more than 16, I believe.
And that includes adults.
Yeah, I'm with Cece though. I'd feel really good about this. I don't feel good at 16 at all, but I would, especially still in purple, but if we could set a number, like what we were talking about previously, I'd feel really good about this. For the first time, I'd feel good about anybody going back on campus.
No, go ahead.
Diane, please go ahead.
Thank you. The only thing I have with that, Mark, and just hear me out a second, is totally. For us to arbitrarily set that when in fact they are already identifying it. I think we should trust that they're going to be able to determine how many students it's going to be effective to work with, and that they're going to be able to work with. Because then if we say 5 and a teacher says, I really need these 6, then she's all of a sudden violating what we're setting. So I really don't think we should. They've already identified it in their MOU. They're going to be working with their principal and with Leslie to identify those children. And I think we need to leave it up to the discretion of them to decide that. That makes sense?
No, it makes sense for those teachers that chose, hey, I'm going to decide who I want to work with. But the ones who said they'll work with anybody within the criteria, I just have a really bad feeling about because there's obviously we have way more kids that need help than we have teachers that volunteered.
Absolutely.
So I would assume then what they're going to do is pack out every class, any teacher that volunteered to assist kids that were struggling, and not, if every teacher had chosen 3, which was, hey, I'll decide how many kids I want and when I want them, then I would be totally with you. But I wonder for those teachers that chose, to say, hey, I'll help anybody that's struggling. I really don't in purple feel comfortable with 16. Does that make sense what I'm saying? At least you disagree or not, does that make sense?
I guess where I'm coming from is I I really have a lot of faith in our professionals, and I want to say I know they're going to make the best decision. I don't think we should handicap them in any way. Let's let them make the choice based on the students that they're presented with. They're going to know who's going to mix together. You know, that's part of it when we're putting groups together. They need to know personalities are going to get together. They need to know students that are going to work together. I really don't think that that's our decision to be made. I think we need to leave it to the professionals. And I think that's why they're the professionals.
So who's going to make the decision, the administrator or the teacher, in terms of?
I would say it's a combination of both.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, that's never a combination. That's an administrator.
Just a second, Mark. Yeah, I was going to ask that as well, wanting to know, because the amount I added up the students in their reading category were, it was 529, and in the math it was 456. And I bet there are some that are in the same student might be in both of those columns, correct? So we might have some duplicates, extra numbers in there, but we only have 16 teachers and counselors to be able to provide this service that we're hoping to be able to provide. How do we determine which of these 529 students or 456 students, how do we determine which ones are going to go in? Is it going to be special ed first? Like, how do we determine that and then make it equitable that we're not leaving somebody out? I'm just kind of curious how we are going to handle that, because it's a huge number for not that many teachers. And we have, 200 teachers, right?
We have about 250, I believe.
250,
yeah.
Okay, and we only got 100, where did you say?
109.
109 responses. That concerns me too.
So to answer your question, Sherry, what we would do is we would be collaborative. We would meet with the principal, say, here's your data, here's your teachers that are going to come back, and here are the students who meet the criteria. All of those teachers have also said that they would work with students in their classroom. So they're going to be able to say, okay, here's the 5 kids in my classroom who meet that criteria. So I think I only had 1 teacher, maybe 2, that said they would work with kids across the school. So it's really going to be kids from their own classroom.
Okay, so how is it fair for all these other students that are falling behind to not have that opportunity? Does that make sense?
It does. And as I said, not all teachers, but many teachers are doing small group online. And so special ed students who are in special ed are getting their special ed services online, their speech online. So that would continue. That doesn't go away. So they would still be getting small group. It would just be that some would get to come in person. And it will also be dependent on if the families say, yes, I can get my student there, or yes, I'm comfortable with this. So there would be those other criteria. I'm hoping that as people start doing that, more people will say, oh, I want to do that too. And that it kind of, I can speak for myself. When I go into, the very first time I went into the office, I was nervous.
Sure.
But now I go in, you get into your routine and you know how to do all of that. So I think that may happen as well. And I really look at this as hopefully a bridge until we can open up in hybrid.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
What's the time frame in terms of getting this up and running, the small groups?
I think we could do it in the next few days.
And
we know the students, we know the teachers, so it's really going back and saying, okay, let's look at your class. Okay, here's your 5, your 6 students that fit that criteria. Let's call them, see if they're willing to come in, and then we go up the list. Teachers are going to be able to help us when they look at their classroom and say, here's the students who fit your criteria. You'll know, okay, these are the ones that I really need to get to come in.
So there's nothing about the 2-week, excuse me. There's nothing about the 2-week to give the teachers 2 weeks to plan for that.
That was to switch back to hybrid.
Got it. Thank you. Any other questions?
Just a comment. I think for me, I would be comfortable with this if it was the teacher making the decision about how many kids they felt comfortable with. And there wasn't that ability of the administrator to say, no, I need you to take, 4 more, 5 more, whatever. I need, I've been the, person, I've been against the in-person, but, Leslie answered all my questions. That'd be the last real tipping point for me is, having been a teacher, and I know the balance of power when it comes to your job and administrator, not downplaying or knocking any administrators, but I think I'd feel more comfortable with it. I'm not even setting a number. I'm not saying 5 or 6, but I'm saying that the teacher, Leslie, you keep going back to it about how the teacher knows who they need. And the teacher could say, these are the 5 or these are the 6. I'd like to see the power rest there. They were good enough to volunteer to come back. I'd like to see them not have anybody piled upon them above and beyond what they felt comfortable with. That's just a comment.
Yeah.
It's
And
not a
Mark,
question.
I'm going to really disagree because the person that really is going to be responsible at that site is the admin. So they really need to be working together. And I think it's a great opportunity for that to happen. We know that the teacher is reviewing the sites. I know you don't agree, and I don't agree with that comment either. So it's okay. We can do this.
Yeah.
But it's, you can't eliminate the person who is responsible for the entire site. They have to be working collaboratively together. So, and you know that I know, having worked both sides of those jobs, that's going to be something that you're really going to depend on and need to listen to. But you can't say, I'm sorry, you don't have a voice. And that's not our position to say that. What we need to say tonight is we're going to open up our small group instruction. And that's the thing that we need to start moving forward with. Because I believe what Leslie is saying too. I think as we begin to feel comfortable and we get our toe in the water, I am going to bet that there's going to be more people coming forward, because those numbers, Sherry, you are right. To me, they are overwhelming. I am concerned about the number of children that do meet that criteria.
I'd just like to jump in that I think between Trustee Maselli and Trustee Ferrucci, I'm very confident that the teachers can work with the administrators and make that a collaborative process. Absolutely. And then if a teacher felt that they were uncomfortable with that imbalance of power, if that existed, they would let us know. But knowing the site leaders and the teachers, and I think the relationship we tried to develop, Mark, Trustee Maselli, great point. I'm confident they can do it together.
Can I add one more factor on that? We know that groups work better for academics, especially for the younger kids when they're in smaller groups.
Mm-hmm.
My worry about limiting numbers is if we're able to bring some students back in special ed that have aides and the classroom teacher in the room and then a few kids, that's where the number starts to creep up. They'd have to spread out. We couldn't do more, but oftentimes we'll have special purpose aides that will work with a small group of students. And so if you have a couple of those little groups going, your number's higher.
Now that you bring that up, that's a great point. What is the special ed going to look like, since I don't believe any of the special ed teachers volunteered? So what are you going to end up doing with those special ed kids if none of the, obviously it's SDC would be the only special ed kids that would be, have one teacher. But, you're talking about the one-on-one aides. When I think one-on-one aides, it's special purpose aides, I often think about SDC. What's going to happen there? Are they going to be fit somewhere else, or what?
Well, they'll still get their services. So they still get small group services, whether it's if we can get them back in person or
virtually. Yeah.
Or virtually. So that doesn't stop. And then depending on when we look at teachers' classrooms and how the kids shake out, maybe some of them would be in some of the small groups in the class, depending on need. What we know about small group is we have a group of students that really need X. And so we
Mm-hmm.
target some small group around that. So, it depends on when we sit with that teacher and say, okay, here's the students, or who do you have? And then we work from there.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Beatson, for all the information. If everybody feels comfortable at this point, I'd like to put it out there and see if there's a motion to be made. Okay, Mrs. Ferrucci.
I would like to make a motion that we move into small group instruction in Benicia.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Do we need to do a roll call vote?
Mm-hmm.
President Ferrucci, President Zeta, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Ross.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli.
No.
Trustee Ferrucci.
Yes.
And Trustee Grubbs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, then. That concludes our meeting of February 18th. It is 9:48, and I am going to adjourn us out. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.